Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the third video for the Zoom automation application series, so we are making progress. That is nice. Now, a few changes to the videos is that one, I got a new mic and also some noise cancellation software, so my audio is not crappy anymore. And background noise has also been eliminated. Problem number two is that my videos are just too long. If you guys may have noticed, in the past two videos for Zoom automation application, it is 1 hour and 30 minutes. 30 minutes and 1 hour respectively for the past two videos. To prevent this from happening, what I'm thinking of is that the code that I'm going to write today, I will divide it into certain chunks, like huge chunks or segments of code. And after that, I'll create a time lapse of myself programming this. And after that, I will test this code and also explain each and every single line. Now, if you guys want to copy the code, if you can just you can just pause the video and start typing. Otherwise, if you're too lazy to do that, there's a pastebin link down below in the description which contains the code I wrote today. Go to the link and you can just copy the code from that website. And that's pretty much it, I think. And in this video, what we're going to be doing is we will be adding some additional functions to the UI, which means the close button, the minimize button, add new meeting, and save button. And also we will be retrieving data from the table that we created in the UI and storing it, and converting it into a data frame format using pandas data frame. Some of you guys might know what pandas data frame is. Others who don't know, it will be shown in the video. And after this, in the next video, what we're possibly going to do is we will be feeding this data frame that we created in this video to the SQL database that we told before for permanent storage on the device. Well, that's pretty much it. Now let's get into the video. Now this is where we ended up last time. What we did was we set up the UI so that it's visible in screen, and we also added fake drag to the fake title bar because we removed the original title bar and its background. So now we can drag it across the screen with ease. And yes, that's pretty much it. Now let's get into the first time lapse. And that ends our time lapse. So now let's go ahead and test the code. So yes, the window pops up and that's a good sign. And now we have main functions are for the minimize button and close buttons. So when you hover over the close button, you can see a small label saying close, and if you hover over the minimize button, you can see a small label saying minimize. And when you hit the minimize button, you can see the window is minimized to the taskbar, and if you hit the close button, the window disappears. Now mind you, the window has not quit. The application has not quit. It just has been disappeared from the window and from the taskbar and can be only accessed using this tray menu icon. Now the reason I don't quit the application altogether will be explained during the explanation of the code. Now to access the window back, you have to right click on this icon and you have three options: show, hide, and quit. Now if you hit show, the window pops back up. You go back, right click and hit hide, the window disappears. And if you right click and hit show now, and then if you hit quit, the application closes permanently. And by permanently, I mean it does not just run in the background, it closes as it is. And these are the new functions that we added from this segment of code. And if I hit quit, the application goes and it's no longer running in the background too. So that's how you quit the application if you want to quit it permanently. Now let's get to the explanation part. So first we imported a few new packages, which is these three packages: Queue System Tray Icon, Queue Action, and Queue Menu. Then we have Queue Icon from Qt GUI. And then we wrote these 4 lines of code. So these two lines give the functions to those two buttons, close and minimize. Let's just keep them here for reference. This is closed and this is minimized. So as you guys can see, self.ui.close button gives us access to the close button that we created in the UI .clicked.connect. Now this says when the close button or any button is clicked, then connect the button to a certain function, which in this case is self.hide. The reason I did give self.close instead of self.hide will be explained when we reach here. Now, yeah, that's for close button, and the same is for the minimize button. So self.ui.min button, which is the minimize button, .clicked.connect self.show minimized. Now, self.hide and self.show minimized are inbuilt functions of PyQt5. Yeah, that's it. And then we have these two lines to set the tooltip, which is that label we saw when you hover over the buttons. That's set over here. So it's self.ui.close button, which again gives us access to the close button, set tooltip, and the same for the minimize button. And then these three lines change the headers of this table. Now the difference is shown in front of you. This is without the headers, and this is without these three lines of code, and this side is with the three lines of code. As you guys can see, that title changes and it's more beautiful and rounded. The same happens for the border on the left side, but it's not visible now because we don't have any rows in the table yet. And that's basically those three lines. Now moving on to this huge chunk of code. This is where we create the tray menu icon, which we created over here. Now the reason we have this icon and I didn't give close over here is because an application like ZoomBot has a timer in it. So you schedule, it's like an alarm. So you schedule a meeting for a certain time, suppose 5 o'clock. So an inbuilt clock should be keep on running simultaneously and forever to see whether the time is 5 o'clock. So when the time is 5 o'clock and it matches the time for the meeting that we scheduled, then it will start the meeting. So that means a clock or a timer should be constantly running. That means if you close the application, the timer will also close because the timer is in this application. So to make sure that the timer doesn't close, and the application still continues to run and is not in sight of the user. That's why we give self.hide. So when you hit close, the application is not visible on your screen or your taskbar. Wait, let's hit close. So if you hit close, application is no longer on your screen or in the taskbar, so it's out of your mind. But the timer is still running in the background and the application is fully functional. And if you want to really quit it, you have this tray menu icon which we created here. So these first two lines create the icon for the tray menu, which is the logo. So for this, we first create the tray icon using QSystem tray icon, which we imported. And then we have self.trayicon.set icon, with which we set the icons for the application. Now, PyQt5 mainly prefers PNG files, and JPEG doesn't work that much. And every time you set an icon in PyQt5, not only for QSystem tray icon, anything else, always make sure to use Q icon, because Q icon converts this PNG into a PyQt5 format and then sets it as an icon to the button or the system tray icon or whatever. So that's what Q icon and this whole line does. And this logo is the logo of my channel, as you guys may have seen over here. And then in these three lines we are creating actions. So these three lines are the buttons you see over here. When you right click, you see these three buttons: show, hide, and quit. Those are these three actions that we give over here. So Q action is a module that we imported, and this name can be changed however you want. And then here we do the same thing as we did with the buttons here. So show action, which is the button, the option in the menu, if it is triggered, that means if it is clicked, then dot connect to self dot show, which is an inbuilt function in PyQt5 which shows the hidden window. And the same for all the rest of the three, which is hide action trigger dot connect self dot hide. And for quit action, we have self dot close event instead of self dot close. It's because we are close is just directly closing the window, and close event is a sequence of closing. Like every application, when it gets closed, it has a certain protocol to follow to quit the application. Using close event, we can create a custom protocol like we want. So that protocol is right here, these two lines. Close event is an inbuilt function of PyQt5, and it is editable so that we can create our own protocol to close it. The reason is, if you do self.close, the window gets closed, but this tray icon will still stay in this menu sometimes for some devices. So to prevent that from happening, and to preserve the RAM that we have on our computer, we also add self.tray_icon.hide, which removes this icon while closing the application. That means if we hit quit over here, which is quit action.trigger.connect.close event, which is this function, when we hit quit, it first hides the tray icon over here, and then it simultaneously closes this whole window. That is what self.close event does. And then we are creating the tray menu. Now this is the tray icon, and this is the tray menu. So these are two different things. This is just the face of the menu, and inside this menu we will be adding these three functions, which, as I showed before, these three ones. And then we set the menu to this icon, and then we show the icon, which is then shown here. So that is the segment of code that we wrote right now. Hope you guys understood it. And now let's jump into the second segment. Well, that ends another tedious time lapse, which took me approximately more than 20 minutes to make. But anyways, moving on. Now we have created three main functions for this UI, which is add meeting, delete meeting, and save table. Now let's test these functions and see if they work. If not, we will try to fix them again. Okay, the window pops up. That is a nice sign. Let's hit add new meeting, and yes, I connected the add new meeting button to the add meeting function, and save button to the save table function. So if I hit add new meeting, it calls the add meeting, and as you guys can see, we have a row filled with widgets where we can input our data. So name, ID, and password go in here. You can change your date and time over here. Now the year is not included, because if you are scheduling a meeting for the next year, that is absolutely ridiculous, and no, you should not do that. And then we have no audio and no video checkboxes. These are not centralized, which is kind of ticking me off. And then we also have the delete button. And if you guys might see this blank space over here, we will be fixing that in the next video. I have to figure out some sort of size dimensions for this, so we'll see that in the next video. And yes, that's pretty much it. Now you can add your details here. So I'm going to type in Aaron. Wait, what? Okay, Aaron Fritz. ID 123 password I don't know, and I'm gonna change the date to like Feb. This is a 24-hour clock, so if you're gonna go for 5 p.m. you have to do a 1700. It is a 24-hour clock, not a 12-hour clock format. You have to remember that. And I have no audio and no video checkboxes, and if I hit save in the console you can see an output. Now this is the data frame I was talking about, and this is the data frame format in the end, which we will be feeding it to the SQL database for permanent storage. Now you can also add another meeting and fill in some random data. Let's say Jeffrey 234234, and let's say still don't know, and password we'll give September, which is September 7 o'clock, which is 1900, and then no audio, and save. As you guys can see here, we have another. Just ignore this, you have to see it from here, and there's another data frame which contains all this data in the same table format as here. So that is how this whole updates work. Now, another additional feature in this datetime widget is that every time you hit add new meeting, it sets the current date and time. So exact moment I hit the add new meeting button. That is an additional feature in the code. So everything works well. Let's just see whether the tray icon is still there. Yes, the tray icon is still there and it works. Yes, it works. So that is a good sign. Now let's get on to the explanation part. Okay, now to start our explanation, we'll start with the first new function, which is add meeting. Now let's first run the application and keep it in the side. Now the first 7 lines, as you guys can see here, is what we use to create the widgets that fill up these cells. So the first one, name, ID, and password, all these columns are in the same order as these lines. The first 3, name, ID, and password, contain the Q line edit widget, which is a text box. All these widgets that we use in this row were imported from the Qt widgets in PyQt5 from here to here. Q line edit, Q push button, Q datetime, and Q checkbox. Now, after the name, ID, and password, we have the fourth one, the Q datetime edit, which is also right here. After that, we have 2 checkboxes, which is audio and video, and the last we have the Q push button. So that's pretty much it. And in the next 2 lines, 78 and 79, we set the display format for this datetime edit. So the format is the date first, then the short form of the month, and after that a 24-hour clock format. That is the format that we are going for in this datetime edit. After that, we will be setting the current date and time in the 79th line. As you guys can see, datetime.set datetime qdatetime.current date time. Then qdatetime was imported from Qtcore in PyQt5. And after that, we have the close button. So the close button is the delete button over here, and we are setting the icon. I got an icon of the internet which looks like this. And as I said before, every time you set an icon for a widget, you have to use QIcon and a PNG format of the image. And after that, from here starts the tough part, full logic and everything. So to understand first, we need to know what is self.curMeetingCount. CurMeetingCount is a variable that we initiated over here, which contains the number or the value of the number of rows or meetings in this table. So now we only have 1 row or 1 meeting, which means the curMeetingCount is 1. If we add 1, the curMeetingCount is 2. If we remove 1, the curMeetingCount is back to 1. That is how curMeetingCount works, and it plays an important role in this program. So in this line, in the 84th line, we will be inserting a row in a certain position, which is the curMeetingCount. So in the beginning, I am going to be resetting this table. Now the curMeetingCount is 0. Some of you guys may know that in programming languages, the numbers start from 0. It's whole numbers, it doesn't start from 1. And now when we insert the row at a certain position, it will be 0, which means the first row. And if I hit add new meeting, a row has been inserted and the position 0. Now the current meeting count is 1 since we have one row here. Now if I hit add new meeting again, it will insert a row in position 1, which is the second position over here. So if I hit add new meeting, let's put some values in here so that we can understand the row spawns beneath the first row. And the same thing continues on and on and on until we click the add new meeting button. That is the first line, which is 84th line. And then we have the 85th line, which is close.setObjectName str self.currentMeetingCount. Now this line corresponds to the close button that we created in the 76th line. This gives the every close button in this list, all these close buttons or delete buttons, their own name or ID. We are making sure that this button's name or ID is equivalent to the row ID. So the first row's ID is 0 and the first close button's ID is also 0. This is that when we click the close button, suppose I'm putting A here, S here, D here, and F here. So if I click the delete button on S, this ID makes sure that we delete the row which contain the value S. And if I do it the same with D, it does the same, and for A, it does not delete any other rows, but it deletes the row that we want. That's why we are adding an object name, which is the string format of the current meeting count value. In the next line, we are adding a function to the button. As we know that we can connect push buttons to functions. We have seen that in the click buttons, the close button and the minimize button, and also add meeting and save. The same way, these delete meeting buttons also, delete meeting buttons also need their own functions. That is the delete meeting function that we created over here. Now, usually, if you may have noticed, this delete meeting function has a parameter. Now, usually for buttons, you cannot add parameters because you cannot put brackets. Because suppose, look over here, for close button and minimize button, I put self.hide and did not put these brackets. Instead, I removed the brackets and only wrote the name of the function. Because if you put the brackets, the program will crash. But in this case, we need to put the brackets in this delete meeting function because we need to add a parameter, which is the button ID. So to prevent the program from crashing, we will be using the word lambda colon, which allows us to put a value in the bracket without the program crashing. You can use this in case if you need to push a button and also add parameters to it. So this this close button is connected to the delete meeting function, and this delete meeting function takes the parameter of the object name of this close button. That is the ID of the close button, which is the same as the row ID, so that it'd be easy to delete the certain row. And after that, we append this close button to a list of close buttons which we started over here. The reason is that so we can access these close buttons and it is easy to use. And that covers the close button section. And next we have a list called self.elements, which contains all the elements in the same order as you guys can see over here in the table. Now, after that, we start a new variable called call equals 0, which denotes the column number. And after that, for element in elements, for element in self.elements, we do a self.ui.tablewidget.set_cell_widget. Here's where we will be setting the cell widgets. So every time, suppose we delete this row, so now the current meeting count is 0. The format is row ID, column ID, and then the element which we need to put. So first the row ID will be 0, so current meeting count is 0. So when we add the new meeting, current meeting count here becomes 0, column becomes 0 because we put column as 0 in the first round of the for loop, and the element will be name. So 0, 0 is the name column, and the name widget gets put here. And in the next round, the row ID still stays 0, but the column ID goes to 1 because we have column plus equals 1. Now if you guys don't know what this is, I'll show you guys. Let's start a new console. And after this, suppose we do a equals 1, and then we do a equals a plus 1, and then we print a, you get the value 2. Now instead you do a equals 1, and after that you do a plus equals 1, and then if you print a, you still get the value 2. So a plus equals 1 is the short form of writing a equals a plus 1. It's a neat little trick in Python. Now the same method can also be applied for subtraction. So if I do a minus equals 1 and then hit, oh wait, let's just put a space here, and if I hit enter and print a, the value is 1 because we subtracted 1 from a and assigned that value to a. And the same way we will be incrementing value 1 each time this for loop runs. That's how the column number becomes 1 in the next round. So row ID is 0, column number equals 1, and the element is ID. Then we come to the ID column, so 0 and 1. After that, the same way, the row ID still stays 0 and column number becomes 2. So this is the column 2 and this is the row 0, and the element in the third time is password right here. Now this continues till we reach close button and every element is put in these row cells. So that's pretty much it for these 5 lines. After that comes these 2 lines. If you guys may have noticed, we have this blank space over here, which is the resized column of the delete column. So we resized this whole delete column and made it this small so that we can save space, and one whole big column for just a small button looked ridiculous. So we use these 2 lines to resize it. Now QHeaderView is a package that we imported from Qt widgets right over here in the end. Let's just put some space. Oh wait, put some spaces over here so it's visible. And yes, using those 2 lines, we resize the sixth column right here. This is the column ID and this is the function QHeaderView.resize to contents. We resize this column to its contents and its title, so it's small. And after this, we remove the close button from the elements list that we created over here. And after this, we append these elements from name to no video into another list. Now the way we do this is, first we do a 4 element name in zip self.elements names. Now self.elements, you know what that is, and self.names is another list that we created on top here. These are IDs for the elements from name to no video. Now the first 3, if you guys are noticing, is called text because these 3 boxes are text, and the next is date time, and the last 2 are checkboxes. We don't include the close button because we removed close from the elements list. What we're doing in this line is adding the ID to these, giving these 6 elements an ID. So these 3 elements are called text, this is called datetime, and these 2 are called checkboxes. This is the same for every row elements. Now if you guys are wondering what is zip, I'll show you that. Suppose we have a list called a equals bracket 1, 2, 3, 4, bracket close, and we have a list called b equals 0, 0, 9, 8, 7, and bracket close. Now you want to print both of these lists using for loop. So we do a for x, y in x, y in a, b. And if we do colon and do print x, y, bracket close, and shift enter, it gives us the error too many values to unpack. Now to prevent this, what we're going to be doing is the same thing, but we put the a and b in zip the same way we did in the code. And now if we hit shift enter, both these values get printed in the same order. Now you can add as much as values you want to zip A and B. Now suppose I added another list called C equals, let's say A, comma, B, comma, C, C, comma, D, and close the bracket. And in the zip, we first add comma Z here, and we add a comma C here, and then we print a comma Z. Now if I hit enter, shift enter, all these three list values get printed in the same order. Now this is also a neat little trick in Python. Now the same thing we are doing here, in which we print the element and the name corresponding to that element. So the first was the element list. The first 6, name, ID, password, datetime, audio, and video. The first 3 are text. The fourth one is datetime, and the fifth and sixth are checkboxes. The same order. Okay, never mind. The same order what happens over here. The first 3 are text, fourth is datetime, fifth and sixth are checkboxes. And that's what's happening in these 2 lines. And after this, we are appending these elements to a list called row. And then we are appending that list into a list called meeting data. In the end, we will be creating a 2-dimensional list, which creates a list in a list. So there's a one main list, and inside that list we contain certain other lists which contain the data of one single row. So if every time I hit add new meeting, this one row is encoded in one list till no video, and after that another list is created for these second row elements, and then these 2 lists are appended to meeting data list. Now these lists don't contain the data. Suppose I have Aaron, I have Kevin here, and some sort of ID, and here these values will not be in this meeting data list. Instead, we will be having a certain function. I'll show you guys that. Suppose, let me quit the application first. We go here, and here I will do a print meeting data, self.meeting data, and I run again. I hit add new meeting. You guys can see here we are not printing the values inside this meeting data function, meeting data list. Instead, if you read this closely, we can see the first one is a queue line edit, second one is a second one is also a queue line edit, third one is also a queue line edit, and the fourth one is a queue datetime edit, fifth one is a checkbox, and sixth one is also a checkbox. These are the widgets but not their text. We will be refining these widgets from their values in the save table function, which we will get to later. And that's basically what we will be doing in these lines. And in the end, we will be incrementing the self.cur meeting count value by 1, now using the plus equals trick. And then we have the delete meeting function. In the delete meeting, we get the parameter, the button ID. Now, as I told you, the row ID and button ID are the same. So if the button ID of the first row is 0, let me just quit it, otherwise we'll keep on printing this gibberish. So self quit, and we remove the print. After that, we hit run again. And as I said, if I hit add new meeting, the row ID of this whole row is 0, and the object name of this close button is also 0. That means the button ID of this button is 0. Now this button ID is given to the delete meeting function, and the first line is self.ui.tablewidget.remove row the button ID. So if I hit close, this close button goes to the delete meeting function and gives its button ID, which is 0, and the table widget removes the row called 0. After that, we will decrease the cur meeting count by minus equals 1, which means we will be reducing the cur meeting count value by 1 because we deleted a row. And after that, we will be removing the close button that we deleted here from the list of the close buttons that we append over here. And after that, in these two lines is something tricky. So suppose we have, say, 4 rows. The button IDs are 0, 1, 2, and 3. Now, when the row IDs are 0 and the button ID is also 0, the row ID here is 1, the button ID is also 1, and the same for these two rows, 3 and 4. And now if I delete 1, these two rows get shifted upwards and their row IDs gets adjusted automatically. So this row is 0, this row is 1, and this row is 2. But their button IDs are this row is 0, this row is 2, and this row is 3. So these two lines, what they do is that they adjust the button IDs according to the row IDs, so that now these two lines make sure that when one row is deleted, the button IDs go back to the same order. So this becomes 0, 1, and 2. Now the row IDs and button IDs are the same. Now if I hit delete once again, it deletes the exact row that I want to be deleted. I hope you guys understood that. And after that, in the last, we remove the data of that specific row from the meeting data list. We appended the data over here. And after that, when we delete that certain meeting, we use the ID to locate that certain row. And then we delete that row or that certain list inside the meeting data list and clear that data. And at the last, we have the function the function self.save table. This is where we save the table into a data frame format that I showed last time. Now the way this works is, first we have two empty lists, data and rows. Now data is like the list row over here, and rows is like the list meeting data over here. These two are the same things. The only difference is this list contains the functions. This list contains the widgets as we saw over here, while these lists contain pure data. So suppose if I quit this application again, let's quit it, and I put a print rows. Wait, not over here, we'll do print rows over here. Okay, before converting it, we will do a print rows, and I hit run. The application opens up. I hit add new meeting. I fill it with data, Aaron 123 ASDF, and then no audio and video. Now when I hit save, what happens is this is the list this is the whole list. These two brackets right here, this one bracket and this closing bracket, is the rows, and then this one whole bracket with the values in here is the one row that we created over here, this whole one row. Now suppose if I add one more meeting and type in let's say Stewart and 678 FGHJ and no video. I hit save once again. Now you have to see the data from here to here. I expand this a bit. Now this first whole list is from here to here, and inside this list we have two rows, this one row and this one row, which contains data. And after that, we convert these two lists into this format, which is the data frame. So that's what's happening here. Now how this works is in a coordinate system format. Now in the first, X is for rows and Y is for columns. First you have to think like that. Now it says for length in meeting data. The length of meeting data is the amount of rows this table have. So the length of the meeting data now is 2. So for X in range length of meeting data is 2, then the first time X runs, this first for loop runs, the value of X is 0. As I told, every programming language, the numbers start from 0. So the first value of X will be 0, which is this row. And after this, we do for Y in range 6. The reason is we have 6 elements, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This is not counted because this does not give us any output or values. That's why we've given 6. So the first time this for loop runs, the value will be 0. And that means 0, 0 is the first widget, which is the name box. And inside that, these sortings, three if functions are sorting systems. They sort they sort and identify the widget, because we have 3 kinds of widgets. First, we have the line edits, which is the text box. Then we have the date time, and then we have checkboxes. Each of these widgets have different functions to get data from. So name boxes and queue date times have dot text right here. That element dot text to get the data from it. Queue datetime also has the same. But queue checkboxes, to get the data or value from that widget, we use dot check state. That's why we added these IDs over here. Now, using the sorting system and the coordinate system, we find the element, and now the ID of this element is text. So we come over here where data.append self.meeting data x comma y. Now, if you guys may remember, the meeting data and this table are in the same format. This one row is one list, this is also another list, and this whole table is the whole list that we saw meeting data. So this is one row, this is the second row, and this whole table is meeting data. And that because of that, the x and y coordinates over here in this table and in meeting data are the same. That's why self.meetingdata.text means the text box over here, which is 0, 0. Now in the next, let's say we reached date time. So the coordinate is 0, 3. Now from there also we get dot text, as our ID is date time. We come over here, and after that we come to the coordinate 0, 4, which is no audio in the first row. Now inside this, the ID of this no audio checkbox is checkbox, which is right over here. So then we reach in this one, in which we retrieve the data using dot checked state. And after that we use rows.append.data to append this whole row that we used here. And after that we make data blank so that we can go for another round. And after this we printed the rows as we saw here, which these are here. This is the row that we printed, that list. And after that we put these rows, this row list, into the data frame function that we imported from pandas, and convert this rows into a data frame format like this. And after that we printed the meeting. So it is data frame inside this rows, and after that we give column names, which is name, ID, password, date time, audio, and video, in the same order as in the table. So the key things in this program is the current meeting count and order of these elements. That's the reason these things work flawlessly. So I hope you guys understood what these things do, and those are the 3 functions. And now before these 2 lines are the lines that we use to connect the add button to the add meeting function and the save button to the save table function. And that is pretty much it. I think we covered everything. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope you guys understood all the concepts, and if you guys still didn't understand certain parts, comment down below and I'll try to explain it again. And in the next video we will be using the SQL database. We will be creating a SQL database and feeding this data frame that we created over here, which is this table format over here, into that permanent storage system. After that we will also be doing a few other random stuff, maybe something related with the automation script that we made in the first video. And I guess that's pretty much it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like my content. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Bye.